I'm Yvonne Chang, and I know some of you, a few of you are new, and I'm here to try to explain to you what is inclusive mentoring for inclusive leadership. And this whole theme is part of what the thrust is of this particular leadership development program, and what I hope you'll notice it's a little bit different than some of the other leadership programs that are out there on the market. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the components in case you don't know, because I think some of you might be interested in that. So as a mentor, you are one of what we consider one of the key components of this program. A couple of you will have maybe more than one mentee, and then some will just have one. And we're asking you to meet 7 times in the 6 months. We are basically now down to about 6.5 months. So you're going to have to spread that out approximately once a month for about an hour. If you want to meet more than that, you're more than welcome to, and you can work that out with your mentee. They probably would love it if you wanted to do more than that. But that's the minimum. This is going to be spread out over the whole 7 months. There are 6 different trainings, and you are invited optionally to come to any of them, and your mentees will be there. So it might be a nice way to touch in with it, maybe learn something new, to just sort of see how the whole thing is working together, because we consider you a community as well. Even though some of you aren't here today, that's why we're filming, so all those people that are filming will see the video instead. And there's a graduation in December 9th, and we hope you will come to that to cheer them on. It's from 3 to 5, and I'm going to try to make it very festive. So that is, we are evaluating this program extensively. So Dr. Glenn Fielding is right back there. He's our program evaluator, he's a professional evaluator. So you're going to be getting asked to fill out some forms. We have a short paper, half-page paper one for today. We're going to be doing a front-end evaluation that you'll probably be receiving digitally next week. We have to tie in all the people that are out in the field that aren't here today, so that we have to give them time to do that and see the video. Then there will be some interviewing. We'll come to you if you get asked to be interviewed. We hope you'll say yes. How long are the interviews going to be? About half an hour? About a half hour. And then we're going to do another evaluation at the end, because we really want to see if any of this stuff is really working, and then what we can do to make it better. We've actually built in outcomes from the very beginning all the way through, because we have been working for about 3 or 4 months trying to set up what this program is about, to see if we can actually hit some of those outcomes. So one of the outcomes that everybody is looking for, all of these mentees, is career advancement. And so that's a really big thing. And also, as women and people of color, they're up against certain things that they feel are standing in the way. And so we are hoping that this program can help them to see, how to jump hurdles or whatever needs to happen, so that they can have a little bit more of an advantage or edge. That's the other thing we're trying to measure, if there's anything that's actually helping from this program at all, even though we're just a pilot, just getting started. Okay, let me just get an idea. Has everybody mentored here? Has everybody been a mentor? Everybody's been a mentor?
Not in the city, outside.
Outside the city, okay. And have you all had mentors at some point in your lives?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you learn also when working with a mentor yourself, you learn a lot. I've been mentoring for about 2.5 decades. I'm a professional mentor. I've been professionally trained. I've had lots of schooling, so I understand a lot about the human being and how it fits into leadership. And it's something that I really, really love, because I really feel myself as a person of color and who didn't have a mentor when I was going through the corporate world, it really can make a big difference for me. Because I got into management consulting after that and realized that we could make a big difference, because I was part of setting up a leadership school for a lot of executives.
But when you say have you mentored, do you mean formally this, or have we mentored?
There's a lot of, I'm going to go through the 2 kind of ways that mentoring comes up, which is informal,
Okay.
and the other one is a formal program like this.
Okay, yeah.
So I would say probably all of you have helped people out, and even giving advice a little bit is kind of considered mentoring. When you really get into the world of mentoring, there's a lot more specifics than that, because I'm going to even be introducing a way that's more evocative and less directing. Because I'm borrowing from the International School of, hi Sunny. the International Federation of Coaches, because they work primarily in organizations, all those coaches, and they work to actually empower and not to direct. The more traditional way is to be more of the advisor and the director and the teacher. So that's more the classic, but what I'm going to be introducing with some of these techniques is more an evocative way to empower and to facilitate. You can borrow from those if you like, and I'm going to try to teach a little bit about those different styles today. Okay, in your folders, you've got a bunch of papers there. This is your workbook for today, because we're going to do some activities. That one should be on one side. You've got the PowerPoint here, because some of this you might want to follow the text. If you want the PowerPoint digitally, you can sign up there and make sure you give me the right email address, and I'll send that to you. There is a formal leadership development program mentor agreement and code of conduct. I find this a very important document. I'm going to show you how you go through this with your mentee and what they're going to be doing with this afterwards, so that there is some formal guidelines and parameters so that everybody kind of knows what they're expecting from each other. There's a half-page evaluation. I'll give you time. This shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to do at the end. Calendar for all of our trainings is this piece of paper, and a little bit about some of the expertise that's part of this program is in the bios. Okay, so that's all in your folders. And you have a business card of mine. I want you to see me as a resource. If you have any problems with your mentees or anything about that, call me. Email me. I'm really open to it. I love doing this stuff, and I'm kind of the backbone of the mentor piece here. And if you're interested in anything else, have any other questions, call Janice. Janice McDonald is our manager of this program. That's her phone number there. It's also at the bottom of the agreement format. It's really small print, but I got her phone number here down at the bottom. Okay, let's see what else you're going to need to know. Okay, I think that's it for all the logistics. About halfway through, we're going to have a break, and so about an hour in. So I know some of you are going to need to be leaving. We'll just take a pause because we got to cut the video when we need to leave. Okay, so this we're going to try to cover today. The first half is inclusive mentoring for inclusive leadership. I'm going to give you some key mentoring concepts. So I'm bringing together today something called inclusive mentoring. I don't see a whole lot of this in the United States. I spent 25 years in the Netherlands, and I'm bringing this from Europe, kind of. And it is a kind of mentoring that is really built for enriching your employees so that they want to stay. Because in the Netherlands, they can't fire people as easily. So they had to put money into it, and they would actually hire external mentors to work with their mentees. The second piece is the concept of this inclusive leadership development for mentees. I'm going to be describing that whole thing, what that's about. They spent 2 hours working on this. So they, the mentees will be very entrenched in this. They're going to be coming to you. I've set up a system where they're going to be coming to you with some goals, hopefully, so that you can get right started on it right away. Then the second half, we're going to go into the mentoring relationship, working with mentees. What I call relationship success factors. I've got orientations, functions, and techniques. And some foundational things like the agreement. I'm going to give you a format of a simple session as well, because you got about an hour. What that might look like, you have a template, and then also how you can look at the 7 sessions together in a growth pattern. So you get some information so that hopefully you'll be able to use that. Okay, so I'm going to get into what we're trying to cover for today. I'm trying to, to build your capacity to help your mentees develop fully as a professional, so that's professional development, and grow in their leadership qualities and skills. And I actually separate those two things. There's professional development and leadership development. So that's what we're going to try to do today. So let me get right into the inclusive mentoring key concepts. So basically, I believe that I've been a mentor for 25 years. I really believe mentoring can help people grow and develop to become well-developed, both inside and outside the workplace. So I'm looking at a more broad-based form of mentoring. So what do you need in order to do that? You need a few ingredients. First of all, you need committed professionals who want that. And we got 15 wonderful, fantastic LDPers that really want to grow. And then you're going to need what I call inclusive mentoring to do that. And this is about a relationship that is, one, broad-based. It isn't just for those people getting ahead. It is professional and personal development and how they work together. It is for everyone, not just those going up the ladder for executive leadership or that kind of thing. And it makes a special effort to work with non-dominant groups. In the Netherlands, I worked with a lot of Indonesians who were colonized, and they feel like the lessers in that culture of all the white Dutch. And I worked with a lot of their insecurities about that. So I started to see it there, plus what I experienced in corporate America here, and then I see it here also with all the mentees that I work with. All right, so in the Netherlands, they call me an ontwikkelingsbegeleider.
Of course. I was actually just thinking that.
Just thinking that, right? That's a development guide. And as I said, they hired these externals, so I was one of those externals. So I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out, what helps people to grow. And I'm hopefully going to share some of the things that I don't see too much here in the United States that I think helps people to grow. Yeah, ontwikkelingsbegeleider. You have to have a really guttural G in order to speak over there. They also call me a radiant power coach because I work a lot with women. And in that sense, it's also long-term and it works broad-based. Okay. So this is a little bit about the first blush on inclusive mentoring. So let's take a look at mentoring today in the United States. I'm borrowing from Dr. Bella Ragan, Savvy already knows about this, some statistics that she pulled together looking at the influence of mentoring on career advancement and compensation, dollars. And she was especially trying to look at gender and ethnicity. All right, so here's Dr. Bella Ragan. What she found out today is if you are a man or a woman and you have a male mentor, you possibly going to have a greater dollar boost than if you had a female mentor. Then she looked at race and ethnicity, and she said what she saw with all of these surveys, or rather research that she looked at, mentors that are white male with mentees of color, they had more of a dollar boost than mentors of color. She looked at Black and Hispanic MBA professionals with white mentors. They also had a dollar boost, greater dollar boost than with mentors of color. And lastly, didn't matter if you're male or female, if you had a female mentor or a mentor of color, like me, you did not receive a greater dollar boost than an employee who did not have a mentor at all. I was not happy when I saw all this. But this is the state right now in the United States. Only on those two parameters, career advancement, which a lot of our mentees want, and dollar boost. I don't think as many of them care as much about that, but they do want the advancement. So I said to all of them, if that's primarily what you're looking for, go and find yourself a white male, hopefully that has some power and that is willing to help you by using that power to help you advance. Because probably in our workplaces, we still have the white men holding most of the power. And I believe we need lots of mentors. So if you have one and can get one, and that can be, I'm seeing women nodding here. This is the state we're up against today. So that's why I'm promoting this inclusive mentoring. Because inclusive mentoring is trying to broaden it out and hopefully get enough women up and people of color up so that we can actually have a greater pool. All right, so this is the state now. So I'm promoting what's called inclusive mentoring. And one of the attributes of inclusive mentoring is increasing the number of mentors in top positions from all non-dominant groups. We need a pool up there. I'm trying to do this one person at a time, and I primarily work with women and people of color because I'm trying to increase that pool so that they can be helping others along the way. There is even not enough quality mentors up in top positions that are from non-dominant groups. I'm also suggesting some goals for the mentor to help the mentee with. These are the 5 goals. First, they need to be able to move up ahead in their careers, but I really believe that integrating their professional, personal, and cultural identities is really important. They are carrying richness with them, with all their ethnicity, however they identify, and our workforces are needing this as well, and they carry that with them. So I'm really promoting that we include the cultural component in any kind of mentoring and in any kind of professional development. Also, overcoming their limiting beliefs. Everybody's got limiting beliefs, but somehow, with all the people I've seen, I don't have statistics on it, but it seems like people of color have more. It gets ingrained in us. And to work towards their leadership with confidence and presence, and obviously to be healthy, to have creating sustainable work-life balance. So this is the kind of goals that I'm after when I'm working with mentees. Let's take a look at a definition of workplace mentoring. So mentoring is a mutually trusting and caring relationship in which one person, the mentor, draws on their substantial experience and wisdom, empowers the mentee to develop fully, authentically, and successfully. We modified this. I've been working on this definition for a while, and we modified it because I was really trying to bring in the piece about empowering. Okay, how does mentoring come about? Dora, you asked, if I'm meeting somebody in the hallway, waiting for somebody at lunch, or I've been talking to them for a while, is that considered mentoring? Yes, that's considered mentoring. So it's considered naturally arising. That's where it's spontaneous. Mentor-mentee find each other. They meet each other at the workplace, or they meet each other outside the workplace, and they shape their own relationship. Fine, nothing. That probably goes on all the time. Probably all of you have done some of this. Then there is what's called program-based. The Deep Leadership Development Program would be considered program-based. So we have it structured by the Deep coordinators. We have a few policies. We definitely have some procedures. We asked you to be here today. We're asking you to fill out these agreements with your mentees. The third-party matching, we kind of have a hybrid. Because what we did was we let them go out, we let the mentees go out and find their own if they could, if they wanted to. And for those who didn't or prefer to work from the list, we pulled together a pool where all of you came from. And I actually think that, Dora, there's at least Pooja went out on her own. She went looking. She was one of the ones that went looking. So we let them do that, or we had a pool and we let them choose from the pool. So we did kind of a hybrid. We made it a little bit easier for them. We definitely have some goals. You have a role here as a mentor. Got some timelines. We're definitely going to be assessing this thing. Thanks to the funding from the Office of Equity and Human Rights, we have some money to put on this program. And we have a staff. We have, let's see, 2, 3, 4 of the staff people in the back here. We have 2 from the Deep, Janice and Debbie. We have Carlos from ULA. We have Sunny, lone person holding up can in the back there. So we have a wonderful staff, and Glenn and I are consultants for the team. All right, so that's a little bit about the mentoring as it stands today and where we're trying to go with the inclusive mentoring. So I want to get now into inclusive leadership development because these two things work together. I'm calling this riding the wave because we have 3 pieces that are part of inclusive leadership development. We have personal development, which is the inner work. We have pay it forward leadership, which is the outer work. And we have something that I call the bridge, signature contribution. And I'm going to explain all of this to you. So if you want to follow me in your workbook, there is, personal mastery is going to be coming up on page 1. And this model is on page 3 of your PowerPoint if you want to look. Okay. Most leadership development is all of this know-how, skills, expertise, building your know-how. That's mostly what leadership development is. This is what I'm calling the outer work. This is how you manifest and you're the doer here. What sometimes gets included, we're seeing more of that in leadership theory, is the personal piece. So I'm calling it personal mastery. And basically the reason I believe this is your how you deal with all of your own blockades, problems, talents, helps you become a better leader. And the more you have mastery, especially of your emotional intelligence, the better you are capable to work with teams, deal with motivation, work with all the problems that come in the way. So I believe that the personal mastery piece is just as important, and we're seeing this more and more. So this is about really knowing who you are. The piece that I found out, the more I worked with the personal mastery piece, is signature contribution. Young professionals do not usually get asked, what's important to you? What matters to you? What do you see wrong with the world? Why do you want to get up in the morning? And what we found when you have an employee that you cannot fire in the Netherlands, we had to find what's going to motivate them, what gives them a sense of urgency. So what I discovered is asking them early on, what's your dream? And what gives you the confidence because you're working on something that matters to you? So what I found is when I actually start asking about signature contribution, that inner motivation kicks in, even though they may not be ready for the big, huge picture, but they're starting to be asked and they start to feel empowered already. The other thing that happens is when they care about something, motivation is usually not as much of a problem. Self-confidence is usually not so much of a problem. So all that stuff that I was working on, self-confidence, starts to melt away more and more. There's still going to be times when they think, oh my God, this feels too big. But they're tied into something that fires them up and is important to them. So I now include this piece. And they have been asked about signature contribution. And they may be coming in to you with something about about how to bring about their signature contribution. Okay, so those are the three things. And we have some sub areas, and I'm going to go into each one of these with you, just very briefly. Okay, so we're going to start with personal mastery. I borrow a little bit from Peter Senge. He's kind of an old guy now. He wrote the book Fifth Dimension, and he talks about personal mastery. Okay, so what do I mean by personal mastery? Basically, I mean unblocking whatever's bottling you up so that you can feel more free inside and find what is called more your authentic self. That's another thing that people don't usually ask for is who are you authentically? But in leadership theory, what some of the scholars are finding is some of the key qualities of leadership is being authentic. And authenticity tends to build trust, and trust is a really key thing. So the more I can ask them, what is your authentic self, and how do you get to that authentic self, the more they feel that they can be true to themselves.
Hi.
Dora? Question?
When, maybe to an American that means
Something. Something?
But if somebody asks me, what is your authentic self? What do I say? I'm just asking if there's any way to frame that question in a way that will get what you are looking for.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for those of us who work with, social scientists and social justice, that is, we get that. But when you work with somebody and just ask them, what is your authentic self? I would say, what do you mean by that? What are you looking for?
Yeah. People won't really have a definition of their authentic self, but they will have, if they thought about it, and this is what I've charged everybody in the leadership program to look at. What are you about? Personality? Everybody's got some sort of personality. I said, go take some Myers-Briggs, go take some tests, go on a quest to find out about who you are, right? So know thyself. I even said there's temperament. You can go into the Ayurvedic system. There's body and temperament, right? There's, if we want to get into the fun stuff nowadays, there's style and branding even. We're even trying to put ourselves into making it clear what we are, right? But there's also, especially with people of color, we've got this wonderful area of race, family of origin, culture, identifications with particular social groups that influence your values and your experience. So we got a whole wonderful bunch of stuff there that's part of who you are. And we've got strengths and weaknesses. You can always look at those things. If you go through that, and if they go and spend some time with that, the next layer they're going to hit, naturally, is what I call the shadow diver. This is the part we keep hidden. This is the part we don't want other people to see. But as a person of color, what I realized is I had something called self-disempowerment. I was holding myself down because I was taught to hold myself down. And just to unleash that was already a huge deal for me. So the unconscious layer, I mean, I've said this to so many women and people of color, and I get a lot of nods. Because when we really tap into this place of us that we hold down. Second piece, limiting beliefs. Everybody's got misconceptions about themselves. We got stereotypes. And when we buy into those things, we believe them. But they are only misconceptions. So, and the last piece that everybody's got, defended states. Defended states comes from psychology because there's always fears that we have and things that we find as threats. Once we get into the defended state, we no longer have access to our full potential because we are in our blinders. All of a sudden, all that wonderful potential is gone. It's on the side because we're really facing fears. This comes up so much. So everybody can work on this. And when I can get through this layer with people, and it's usually pretty easy, it doesn't take that much, they'll recognize this. And then you can have, you know, a good commiseration together, because we all have them. They feel heard, they feel seen, and they think, oh, it's gonna kind of make a difference if I do something about this. So then they're ready to get into what I call the wise person or sage. In there, that's where they're gonna find more what that inner voice is. And my experience is that everybody's got that wisdom inside. Everybody has it. I can get in there sooner or later with everybody. All you have to do is ask them about a fairy tale or something like that that they really love. Or, you know, some maybe mythical character that they really love. You know, like, you know, I grew up in the Star Wars age, so I have, you know, Luke Skywalker is one of my heroes. So those kinds of things tap into that part of ourselves that has inspiration built into it. They know themselves, they know what's right for them if we ask. And there you're gonna find that larger meaning that is directly connected to signature contribution. That's how I found this. Is because I took the time to go through all of this, get to this place of, oh yeah, I really believe in something. And what do you want to do about it? And so then they're already tied in. This is how to link it in. And once they get there, they have the, what I call the oh shit moment. The oh shit moment is, holy crap, how am I going to do that? How am I going to make the world better? I need all these skills, so we're right back in the know-how and the skills. But then their know-how and skills is tied to something that has more meaning to them. Even if they're not completely working on it right away, but they know that they're going to be building themselves towards a better leader. And I also give them the quote that I got, which kind of blew my mind, and that was, no one's coming to rescue you. So when I really took that in, no one's coming to rescue me, and I've got some big plan I want to, because it really matters to me, means I have to step up. I have to take responsibility, radical self-responsibility. I have to do what I need to do. So if I don't like social media and I want to start my own business, I still got to learn it anyway. So the oh shit moment is, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this because no one's coming to rescue me. And then we tap into that inner fire, which is, I think, part of what a leader has inside. They usually have somewhere in their belly something that they really care about and they're trying to put forward. May not be exactly what they want to do, but they're at least pushing something forward that has some meaning to them. Okay, they become ready now for what I call signature contribution. So, but before we get into that sense, your mentee might be coming to you asking about this. I want to do one short activity that has to do with this, just to give you a chance to kind of tap into this. All right? Okay, so you've got your workbooks out. I got on page 1. You're going to put that on your lap, and you should have a pen. Okay. So I'm going to give you today 4 really brief skills that you can use for everything. First skill is self-reflection. Also in literature and in studies, research, we've seen that more and more leaders are finding out that being able to quiet the mind and focus and really get centered is becoming more and more important with all of our multitasking and our busy days. So everybody borrows from the world of mindfulness and the world of meditation so that we can kind of turn in and get quiet, all right? So I'm going to just give you an opportunity to do that. I'm going to ask you to follow along with me. For a moment of silence to quiet your mind. This is going to help you with your receptivity and your ability to connect. All right, so getting comfortable, the bottom of your feet touching the floor. Close your eyes. I'm going to do some real simple breathing with you. Inhale slowly and smoothly through your nose. And exhale through your mouth. And inhale through your nose. And exhale through your mouth. And you're going to allow your chest and belly to fill when you inhale. And allow it to empty with the exhalation. Another inhale through your nose. Relaxing your body with the exhalation. Inhaling through your nose and getting comfortable in your chair with the exhalation. So keeping your eyes closed, I'm going to ask you to reflect on the area of personal mastery. I'm going to repeat this to you. And what you're going to be looking for is, which part of personal mastery do you feel most confident delving into with your mentee? And which part do you feel least comfortable delving into? Is it the kaleidoscopic self with personality, culture and identity, strengths and weaknesses? Is it the shadow diver, self-disempowerment, limiting beliefs, defended states? Or is it the wise person finding the inner voice and larger meaning? Which one are you the most comfortable delving into and the least comfortable delving into? And why? Just take a minute to kind of peruse your inner world and see if you can find those answers. Kaleidoscopic self, shadow diver, wise person. You think you have an answer? I can get your attention back here. Okay, well, hopefully got a little bit of chance to talk about some of these things. Not always the easiest topics to talk about, so thank you for having the courage to go in there. And if you get asked about this, I'm sure you guys have a lot of resources to draw upon on the inside, because you're all wise people yourselves. All right, so we're going to get into signature contributions. So as I said, this is that, I think it's never too early to ask any mentee about what's important to them and to start that conversation. So how we did that to start the conversation is let me give you our definition of signature contribution is your intended life's work. Got those guys at the top of the mountain. The work that you're exactly the right person to do and reflects who you most essentially are in your deepest wisdom and the legacy you're meant to leave. So this is a really BFD. This is a big deal. I'm in my early 60s. It's taken me this long to figure out what my signature contribution is. I'm standing here doing it. It stemmed early on from being not valued. As a girl, Chinese girl, I was not valued. So somewhere along the line, after spending all these years trying to figure out what value is, I realized I want to value everybody else. So my way of giving back is finding a way to really honor, value, bring forth all of the potential within anybody that I can find who wants to work on that. And the more I can bring that to our workplaces so that those people can move up and become leaders and inspire other people, then I'm really in my groove, then I'm really excited. So I really do believe you can manifest your signature contribution in the world. I had to prove it to myself though, first. Okay, so what we did was to just get them started on it. We covered 3 dimensions. We covered purpose, what you're inspired to bring into the world. So in other words, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what are you fired up to do, and what do you want to, pull up your sleeves for and start to work on. So we gave them 5 purposes that are general purposes, and then we said if you didn't find one here, create one for yourself. Then we looked at your gifts. So this goes beyond your personality. And what we did was we wanted to give them an inclusive model for gifts. So we borrowed from Howard Gardner's Multiple Intelligences. It's used a lot in education because it includes many, many different parts of what our gifts are. So like one of the things that I'm really good at is intrapersonal. I like to know about what makes a humanoid tick. And then I do the interpersonal. I got to do that when I'm doing the mentoring. And what I use a lot is my kinesthetic awareness. So I'm feeling things. I use more than that than my brain. I'm actually feeling what's going on in my body. So I didn't know how I was going to use that. I went from studying music. I thought I was going to be music intelligence. I don't have music intelligence. I'm actually tone deaf. I have body intelligence. So I switched from music to dance, and that worked. And the last thing we did was we got into context. So what kind of workplace do they really feel like they thrive in and not die in? And so what we did was we covered just generally things like culture, a very subtle culture. Sometimes large organizations are considered more subtle cultures versus pioneer organizations. I worked in a lot of startups, so I like pioneer organizations. We asked them about performance. Do they like to do more individual competition, like people in sales forces tend to like that a lot, and other ones like more group collaboration. We asked them to think about workplace setting. So do they mainly like to work more solo, or do they mainly like to work more in groups? Because those kinds of things are things that they can determine a little bit as they move forward. Then what we asked them to do is take a look at your workplace, where you work now. Is there anything that resembles your choices, your preferences, and where you're working now? So there's going to be some ahas going off there. Because what I do believe is that they can start to manifest and work towards that. So what we ask them to do, you're going to get this. The next thing is this profile. On the back of your worksheet, you have a copy of the profile. They're going to be coming into you with their mentee profiles. So what we did in their workshop is we went through the pink area, that's personal mastery, and we asked them to try to pick one area that they may want to work on, just to get an indication. And then we asked them, as we suggested, to go home and set a goal for yourself. So a goal could be, for example, if they wanted to work on the shadow diver, overcoming my limiting beliefs that I'm not cut out to be a leader. So that could be a goal that they want to work on. Then for signature contribution, we asked them to go through those preferences, and we asked them to look at their current workplace, where they work now, and analyze, do any of those things, their preferences that they have, show up where they're working now? Because what we hope that they might take on is to see how can they move that forward by asking for a project, by volunteering, or by getting some classes in that area, because that's kind of what they want to do, so that they can start to shape themselves. The last one we haven't gone through yet, but we're going to, is all the different skill sets that they want to work on, right? It's the same thing. We ask them to pick something just to get them started, and then actually to set a goal. And the reason why I'm doing the goal setting is I think all of you, as people who have led organizations, you got to set some goals, and you got to go after the goals. And here they can already start for themselves and their own career advancement, because if they're interested in career advancement, they have to start looking at, how do they want to go attain that? And it isn't just standing there waiting around for somebody to, hand them the thing. They have to go attain that. So like the second leadership training I'm going to be giving, I'm going to be asking them to look at what does personnel want from somebody at this particular level? And what do they need to do to get there? So they have to be interested in their organization enough to want to figure that out. And if they're not, then they probably aren't going to get anywhere. And they just can't sit there and blame the fact that the organization doesn't get them there. So I'm going to be trying to activate that kind of thinking. Okay, I'll be coming back to this a couple times, because this is how I'm trying to set them up in your laps, that they've actually thought about some of these things before they get to you and come in and want to talk to you about it, so that you can get going right away rather than have to spend 2 sessions just getting to know each other. Although you will be doing that too. Okay, so that's the profile, and I don't need to go through this one. So, pay it forward leadership. Okay. We're going to get into the leadership piece, because this is where many of them who started said, I want to get better at this skill, I want to be able to do a PowerPoint, I want to be able to stand up and do a presentation, I need to do some networking. So there was a whole big row of all these things that they wanted. So what we tried to do with this particular area is to put them together into sections. First thing we wanted to explain to them was the difference between just leadership and pay it forward leadership. Pay it forward leadership is a special goal of the DEEP program, because they have affinity groups which they would like to offer the mentees and as members of their affinity groups an opportunity to step up and do some leadership tasks right now in their affinity groups, where they can practice that already. So pay it forward leadership, I define leadership as very simple, making change happen in the world. Very, very simple. Pay it forward leadership is adding 3 qualities: that the LDPer is motivated by gratitude for their own gifts, whatever they have inside, and the support that they're all receiving through all of you and this program. And that they want to be able to have some commitment to benefit others and the planet as a whole, and that they're going to develop particular workplace skills that they may want to use. For example, if one of the gals in our, one of the affinity group leaders is really good with making all kinds of forms and working with online stuff. She's been donating a lot of her time to get our website up and running, and she's making fillable forms for me so we can get this stuff out online. This is how she can be using her skill in the form of helping an organization move forward, even if it's a small organization. Good practice. Okay, so we're dividing pay it forward leadership into 4 areas. The first area is what I call, get my glasses on, organizational know-how. Okay, so this is an area they are really going to be coming to you for. This is understanding what's below the surface how to figure out what the unstated rules are, the expectations, politics of a modern workplace. If you can provide for them a safe space where they can talk about this with you, where they can ask their questions, why is something on paper said to be done this way, but everybody else is doing it differently? Or that person's doing it differently, and how come that's okay? And what's going on there? So if you can give them that space, they're going to just be eating out of your hands. They're going to love that. Opening doors. How do they do upward mobility? How does that work? I know when I first got my big job at a big corporation, I had no idea there was upward mobility and that it was all going on around me. So I had to figure that out the hard way. So they're going to be asking about that because there's a lot of them who are looking for upward mobility. Organizational politics, which is the unwritten way that people exert power and influence beyond the formal lines of authority. So I know all of you have to deal with this at some level, most of the time. What I said to all the LD peers is there are going to be times that you have to take a stand, you have to gain alliances, and you're going to gather support. And that's usually informal. It's not always the formal way. So if you can give them a tip in that area, they're going to love it. Especially folks from non-dominant groups who have not traditionally had as much opportunity to hold power, they need help. I need help. All right, so that's the organizational know-how piece. There's a lot of eyes opened up when I brought that in. Second piece that I cannot do without cultural agility. So for even know-how, the ability to understand the culture that they're being asked to follow without losing their own family of origin culture is, I think, really important, because I think our workplaces are richer when they can bring that in. They may need to put it aside for a while, like they may need to learn samba instead of doing the waltz, but they can learn to dance between the two. I gave examples such as somebody might come from a culture that holds family unity is very important. So then, you know, being the rebel is not a good thing. However, in a workplace, sometimes that consensus building is important, but it could be that good, honest debate is also important. And those people are going to feel really uncomfortable with that. But to learn how to do that and to step into doing that other step without saying that they have to do away with another side of them is really an asset for them. So I tried to see it, let them see it as a plus, an and. We all know that that it's important to respect other cultures. That was not a difficult thing. And then this last one is really being able to use rapport to go across cultures in whatever you're doing. I actually think some of these folks, I'm going to be working with a small group of immigrants, 3 women that are all immigrants. They all feel that interpersonal is difficult for them, and that makes them feel less confident. So I'm going to be working on the issues of interpersonal and how that affects their confidence. So they feel okay about it, but then when I really ask them, do you know how to make someone feel comfortable? And they never even thought about that. So all of a sudden that whole thing of, how do I make someone feel comfortable when I'm in a room with them or in a meeting with them? And so if they can get a little more skilled in that kind of stuff without losing who they are, because they're beautifully friendly human beings, they just feel a little bit shy about it. Okay, the next one is interpersonal networking, effectiveness. I lumped everything in here. Everything that has to do with human beings I lumped into here. So this is communications, collaboration, professional relationships. The reason I lumped all of this stuff in here is because I really believe the root of all of this is human relationships, knowing how to build them and to maintain them. There's going to be, some of them are coming for you for networking. They really want to know who they have to go to and who they can connect to. So one of the roles that I believe of a mentor is the connector. So I know they're going to be coming to you for that. What else can I say about that? Okay, the last group is technical proficiency. So this is a huge group. This is all the know-how for all the different tasks that need to be done. Some of them are very complex skills that you learn at a university or learn in whatever professional trade you're in. And some of it is more strategy, whatever your particular area of expertise is. So, and this is about the mastery. So some of them are coming to you because you have a particular expertise and that they want to learn from you how do you apply that in your workplace and what are the things you have to be looking out for. I included in your organizational expertise because I believe as you move up in an organization, you have to understand how the organization functions. If You have to understand the structure of that. What is hierarchy? What are performance reviews? How do you do strategic planning? All those different kinds of things, which are more organizational oriented or project oriented in a sense. So I included that in there, and then performance standards for particular types of expertise. There are really performance standards, and they have to understand the different echelons of that. I know that there's like one person who is works with people in the police department and wants to understand, you know, how that whole hierarchy works, those kinds of things. Okay, what we tried to say about this.
I'd like to learn.
There's actually a couple of people. The one does prevention and deals with a lot of police officers. So what we try to emphasize with this last piece, technical proficiency, is when they can have their technical proficiency tied to what they believe in. Again, it has more meaning for them. And when it becomes personal, then they really want to learn. Then they're going to pick up the book on the weekend, or going to try things out because it becomes something personally important for them. All right, so let me go through one last take on this, just so in case any of you didn't quite understand what we're going to be doing with this form. The part 2, you don't have to look at it. It looks the same. Part 2 is like a logbook. So what I hope they will do is, so for example, if somebody set the goal that they want to learn, they want to get over their limiting belief that they're not cut out to be a leader. A possible growth is, I feel better about myself and I volunteer for a leadership task in my affinity group. And I know all the affinity coordinators back there will be very happy. So when they can start to see what their progress is and log it on here, and even just jotting it down, they begin to say, oh, I am making progress. We aren't just talking and having tea together. We're actually doing something, and I'm actually getting some validation for what I'm doing. So this is meant to help them to actually begin to pay attention to their own progress, because that helps to build, that's the positive feedback loop, that they're actually feeling better about themselves. And the middle one is to really start being creative in their heads on how can they really create something in the place where they work now that might be partly tied to their own sense of purpose. Like if the sense of purpose is about social justice, is there some one thing that they can do in where they work, come up with an idea or more work? No, it doesn't necessarily mean more work. Something that actually ties that in, because then they're going to really want to champion that thing. So just set them on that thinking path to be creative. Okay, so that's what this form is for, and they're going to be coming in with it. Okie doke. All right, so we're just about okay. The fourth skill set that I wanted to bring in is introducing the body. Introducing the body. So we did the mindfulness, we did the active listening, we did the speaking from truth, and now we're going to bring the body in. So you've been sitting already for an hour, and I'm going to lead you in a little bit of movement, and then we're going to take a break so that you can actually, kind of relax and get into your bodies a little bit. If you want to do it sitting, you can, but what I advise you to do is to stand up with me. Okay? So we're going to do the Osho Shuffle. All right, so we finished all of the relationship between the inclusive mentoring and inclusive leadership. So now, and that's what I call riding the wave. For this part, which is all about you and what mentors do, I'm going to introduce a rather complex model, diagram, okay? So you're going to find that diagram on page 3. It's this very complex thing. Okay, so we've got what the mentees are doing. So here's the mentees again. We have the 3 areas. We have personal mastery, signature contribution, and pay it forward leadership. The pink place is the outer world. So I divided sort of like this whole person into the inner world and the outer world, right? So we already covered that. So now we're going to take a look at the mentor side, because the mentor side is cradling the wave. That's part of what I'm going to be asking you to attempt to do, is to be cradling the wave. So in this cradle, what you are, you have an orientation, indispensable condition, and techniques and roles. Then there's a whole process that happens. This process is what I'm calling their wave, and you see 7 diamonds, those are the 7 sessions. You're trying to go through some form of a process with them. If I pull out one of these sessions, I have a plan for you to what a 1 session could look like. And then up at the top, that box is a little bit about how the whole 7 sessions could look. So I'm giving you some templates to work with, if you so desire. So this whole thing is kind of what's going on in this program. They're trying to do work on their leadership from all these 3 areas. You're doing all these techniques and ways to help them move through all of this. By the time we get to December, they're going to graduate, and hopefully will feel like they've accomplished something. Because what we don't want them to have, what we don't want to have happen is by the time they get to the end, they think, well, what was all that mentoring? We just kind of sat around and talked. And because then some of them, this is the first experience they're going to have with mentoring. So we want them to feel, and this is a little bit more the American way that I borrow from the International Coaching Federation, goal setting, and really trying to find some form of accountability with that goal setting. When I get hives when I hear the word accountability, because for me, feels like it's attacking my own personal integrity. So I call it, we have accountability partners. And I do believe that people want accountability, but they also get very nervous around accountability. You know, it's kind of like a push-pull thing. They feel crappy about it, or they feel like they're not, meeting their own standards, and then they start going down that negative spiral of self-disempowerment, say. But at the same time, we all want it. Right? I think the fastest growing area in mentoring right now is fitness, body health and fitness. So we all want something to help us out. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these areas. The first one I call orientations. And basically, this is what's going on the inside. This is how you feel on the inside. So I've got 4 of them here. They are, and you can turn to page 4 to see this. You're going to have the same one I'm going to be working off of. Okay, so this is how I am oriented on the inside. Being fully present. Basically, being fully present is that you just really show up. That you're connecting with them, you're staying connected with them, you're staying connected with yourself. Any kind of distractions you might have, you're trying to set aside, and that's what being present is. So the 4 bullets I have for being present is striving for deep connection, so that's also with yourself and with the other person. Staying with what comes up. There could be stuff that comes up that feels like it's triggering you. I mean, my first few years, I spent a lot of time being triggered while I was in the middle of trying to help somebody. I wasn't very much help, so I've really learned how to work with my own triggers. Being aware and free of whatever is distracting you, and finally being available and attentive. And that's actually easier, it's not that easy to do, because we think we are present, but we're actually somewhere else. Some of us have a way of actually kind of putting part of ourselves somewhere else to help us to calm down or to help us to rest. Sometimes we need to sort things out somewhere else in our brains, and we aren't even really aware of it. So this is not as easy as it looks. Okay, the second area is being non-judgmental. When we can respect our mentees and really accept them for who they are, whatever that may be, especially these people who have immigrated, come from other countries, and have very different customs, they feel more validated, period. If you can just do that much, they're going to feel better. When you are able to take your own prejudices, biases, whatever it is, we all have some form of it, park it outside the session. That's something that I always try to practice to do. Whatever I have in my own judgments, and I usually notice it when I'm triggered, that's one of my judgments coming up. I'm thinking, okay, I got to try to put that aside for the time being. I can bring it up later on, but not in front of the person, and especially not at the expense of the person. So, recovering gracefully from any of the buttons that get pushed. Respecting and accepting your mentee. Holding neutral equanimity for the mentee. Knowing your own preferences and biases, and I said parking them outside, and unhooking for your own reactive triggers. If anybody ever needs some help with that, I can give you like a quick whatever on the phone if you're getting triggered on something, you need some help with that, because I spent 3 years in supervision, looking at all my triggers. They asked me to bring in every one of my triggers with any of my cases, and then we just sort of picked them apart and figured out how I could stay centered with my triggers. So it took me, it takes a lot to learn how to do that. So if anybody ever wants any help with that, just give me a call. Third area, being well differentiated. When you can stay in yourself, knowing who you are, then you actually act as a backdrop for the other person to actually show up. It's really kind of a weird thing. When you can really stay present with who you are, then they have more space to be who they are. Staying firmly centered, clarifying with the mentee where they are. A lot of times I'm picking up something, but I'm not sure if it's really me. Is it me or is it them? So I just ask. Clarifying where they are, responding to the needs while maintaining yourself. There are ways that we become dependent on each other. So this differentiating comes in because people in the helping profession tend to want to help and be needed, and in some cases be the savior. And people who go to those tend sometimes to want to be saved. Pardon me, sorry about that. So to understand that dynamic that's going on and to understand for yourself, I know for myself, I'm in the helping profession, it does feel good, but I'm learning to really put the power back into the person's hand, and maybe that's the best thing I can do. Rather than, so some of these people really do want to be saved, and they want you to help, and they want you to, figure out for them what they need and all those things. If you want to do some of that, you can definitely do it if you want to. But my own personal advice is to really give them the power back, if you can figure out how to do that for them. And gently loosen any enmeshment. Last one, empowering. Believing in the mentee's intrinsic goodness, offering positive affirmations, and then this one, encouraging positive self-regard. If they're trying to grow, they're reaching into their limitations. So they're going to be confronted with their limitations. So there's a tendency with our limitations to kind of say we're not doing well enough and we're going down that negative spiral. So the more you can help them with that positive regard, the better they'll feel for themselves. And then stimulating them at the same time to reach beyond their limits. Those are kind of contradictions, but there's a way to be aspiring and not beating yourself up when you're actually not doing very well at what, or not doing what you want to be doing, what you think you should be doing, the shoulda, coulda, woulda things. It's really fine to really work with those two together. All right, so these are the orientations. I'm going to take us into a quick activity with this. So on your worksheets, I'm going to ask you to pick which one of these orientations is the most difficult for you to hold. Which one do you think is the most difficult for you to hold? And then you're going to check that box.
So these are focused on the mentor and the mentee, but doesn't acknowledge the context in which you're working with. So, for example, being empowering. I'm perfectly good with believing my mentee's intrinsic goodness and not, offering positive affirmation. But the context in which where we're working is not empowering for women in leadership positions. So
How do you do that?
I guess none of these boxes gets at the context that you're in. And I guess I struggled, if I were to pick one based on the title, it would be being empowering, but it's not because any of the 4 things apply that are listed, but it's the context in which I'm working.
So
Does that make sense?
excellent, absolutely,
Okay.
totally. Our workplaces are often not empowering, and big organizations especially are not empowering. We're set up in usually a patriarchal kind of structure where there's more of this kind of motion down and it squishes us down. I do feel that, because the reason why I bring in the personal piece is even though the surroundings may not be empowering, they can begin to identify themselves as something that there's maybe only a little bit of room to move, but they can find that room to move. And in that might be the biggest thing that they've been able to do is find that little bit of room to move, and that's empowering. So you can encourage them to look for that. But that's one of the reasons why I don't just go at it from an organizational standpoint, because that is going to set them up in boxes, right? So, and sometimes in leadership, people end up leaving their jobs, because they really realize that they don't have the room that they really want to have. Some of them need the paycheck because they got kids, and there's lots of circumstances, they're taking care of parents or whatever. So they will kind of accommodate that, but I look for other places where they can feel empowered, and it may not be in their work setting. That's why I include the personal in there, because then you got the whole person you can work with. And if they can at least, get their creativity in their garden or somewhere that they can feel alive and enlivened there, they may not be able to have very much room for that. I've worked a lot with public agencies, and it's tough. But we keep trying.
I think part of what I heard from you is how mentors who've been there, done that, can help somebody who think it can never happen. And even if it is just, as we meet with them, give them that vision, to say, and hold that vision.
That helps.
It can happen here. This is how I struggled to get here. These are the barriers. This is how I limited myself. But also maybe ending up where, after everything has been vetted out and opened up, maybe this is not where I belong because of my, forward-looking vision. It doesn't, it will not work here.
That's why we brought in the organizational piece. What setting do you feel like you thrive in and don't die in? So I'm just trying to sort of, touch into those things so that they start feeling and thinking. Because you want the people that feel like they really are able to contribute and make a difference, despite the fact that the systems are holding them in place at times.
Well, and I think that sometimes validating for someone that it's the environment and not them
Yeah.
is enough to allow you a little breathing space for another day.
Well, and a big part of being empowering there is the stimulating to reach beyond limitations, to understand what the current set of limitations are, and then what's the incremental change that needs to happen to start
Incremental
pushing
change,
those
yeah.
limitations away,
Okay, there's 4 signs around the room, so I'm going to ask you to, you're going to leave everything in your chair because you're going to come back and just take your worksheets and your pen, and you're going to go over to that area that you find the most challenging, right? And hopefully you'll meet somebody over there, and I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of brainstorming with each other to come up with ways that you can help each other or help yourselves hold that particular orientation. The second arc is the indispensable condition. Basically, I put safety and trust together because they go hand in hand. One leads to the other. Trust builds safety, safety builds trust. You could be getting into areas that they feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's good usually. The edge is, especially if you can do that with some gentleness and some compassion. So the trust can get a little bit shaky, or the safety can get a little bit shaky, especially if somebody wants to get into that shadow diver piece. It's really kind of an art to get into that area without people getting really uncomfortable. So I put these together. So basic safety is that safety is the feeling of being unthreatened by emotional or physical danger. So they're not in any real danger when they're sitting with you. However, when they get into mentoring, it is the feeling that you are respected for who you are, affirmed in your right to be, and accepted with your vulnerabilities, because they hopefully will be sharing some vulnerabilities with you. So I'm always kind of surveying the territory to see how that's feeling inside my body. Am I sensing anything? Am I seeing the eyes going or looking around or those kinds of things, or looking down? And I do some of the stuff on the phone. It's a little harder to do that. You have to really use your ears. Trust is believing that another person has your best interest, that's your mentor, at heart, and has the commitment and ability to act accordingly. I think there's lots of times in life when either somebody that they think is an authority isn't able to do that for them, so we get sort of used to that not happening. But in the mentor-mentee relationship, when you can renew that for them constantly, that is one of the key, trust they are saying is one of the key qualities of a good leader. because they want to follow you when they know you get that about them, that you have their back and that you want good things for them. So these two work hand in hand, and obviously you're going to use your orientations, your roles, and your techniques constantly to be working on this. This is just really indispensable. You have to have this going on. And anytime you might be sensing that they're backing off or something like that, I just check. Did I just say something and without making it about me? I just noticed something. I'm going to give you some language also, some of the words that are not so invasive. And if you want a list of how to question, I got tons of lists of how to formulate a question. Okay, so that's the indispensable condition. The next area is the roles. This is what you're going to be doing. The inner part is how you kind of are on the inside, what you're going to be doing, and then the techniques is how you're going to be doing it. So they have seen this. And they're already thinking about, oh, my mentor is going to be a connector. Oh, my mentor is going to be a supporter. They may be wanting one more in particular than the other. Usually, you just kind of merge through all of this continuously. But there are 4 separate areas that I'm going to try to describe for you. So you can follow that also on page 5. Right? You can just follow along with me. So these are the hats. This is what you're going to be doing. So you are a guide. The first grouping is a guide. You're going to share your wisdom. You're going to help the mentee set the direction and to avoid pitfalls. So here's the open road, whatever that open road is for them, wherever they want their help. You're going to help them. What does the path look like? How does that work? And what's going to happen to me when I go out on that open road? What are the pitfalls? What are the unwritten rules on that particular road that we are going to be setting out for the mentee? And can you help them to exercise themselves, give them challenges, and give them feedback? Because that's how they do the practice in it. So that's a really important role. A lot of them are going to be looking for that. Support. I think most of you probably, since you're already volunteering to be a mentor, probably do this pretty naturally, in that you're inspiring them to see themselves as a full potential. You're going to hold space so they can talk openly. Help the mentee surface and release those limiting beliefs, whatever that might be for whatever they're doing. And the big cheerleader, empower, empower, empower. Okay, 2 more. Role model. There you're going to be embodying your own highest level of integrity and competence in whatever your area of competence is, and showing them that you also know that you are also growing. Because that's the whole thing about being authentic, and then they trust you, and then we get that whole leadership. And you could be that role model in that, hey, I have trouble in my job. There's things that I run into that I have no idea how I'm going to solve. And just showing them that gives them the courage also to be more authentic about whether, their strengths and weaknesses. And then lastly, the connector. As I said, they're going to be asking a lot about that. Linking the mentee to key people, organizations, networks, and resources. Shining the spotlight on the mentee's good work and qualities. That's visibility. If they're not working in your area, it may be a little harder for you to do that, but there's ways that if you can help them at all in doing that, they really love it. And then lastly, this is a very controversial area, sponsoring. Sponsoring a mentee for promotions, new positions, or any kind of initiative or project. Not all mentors want to do that. They would love it if you could do that. But it's up to you because your own reputation is on the line, and sometimes it just doesn't feel comfortable. It's part of what they're looking for. Most mentees are looking for that bit of sponsorship, especially since this whole group is really interested in career advancement. And I think we already did the survey, and many of them think they have skills, but when we asked them about what do you feel are the opportunities for advancement, right, in the survey, that one was low. That one was low. Whether or not it's true, we don't know. But their perception is it's that way. So this is the area that they're going to, maybe you're going to be just helping them have a better perception of the reality. Maybe it isn't so. We don't know for sure. But that's their perception in this group. It was significant that we noticed that it was low. Okay, so we're going to do a little activity on the roles. I'm going to let you do a little mentoring with one of the hats. So we should have trios, 1, 2, 3. If one of you wants to form a little trio, because I'm going to have one be the mentor, one be the mentee, and one be the observer. And you're going to try to practice wearing one of the hats that you want to wear. And even though it's not really easy to just stay in one particular hat, you're going to try. So the mentor gets to pick the hat, and then they're going to tell their little trio, because the observer is going to be thinking about what they would do with that hat on. And the mentee, I'm gonna give you all something to be complaining about. So you have a boss that is difficult and is dissatisfied with you. So you can probably come up with some scenario that you're gonna get mentored on. And the person who's being the mentor is gonna try to be using that hack. So I would suggest as you start the mentoring, you ask them, hello, what do you want to work on? And they're gonna say something about, oh, I got a boss that's, difficult, blah, 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 blah. And you can just fill that in. And you go from there trying to use that hack if you can. Then we're gonna do a debrief, and I'll tell you what the debrief is like. So if you wanna get into your little trios and decide who's gonna be the mentor, which hat it's gonna be, and let's see. All right, so the next one is all the techniques. I could spend days talking about the techniques. I've got a whole bag of tricks that I use because everybody's different and you gotta work in different ways with different people. So the techniques I'm bringing up here are what I call evocative. They're trying to get they're trying to help you to find the right kind of wording on a question so that it starts to get people to bubble up. Because especially if you tend to have, if your mentee is introverted or they're not very comfortable, you got all that safety issue going on, it's hard to get them to. So I'm going to try to share with you these different skills. They're basic skills, and I'm just going to kind of describe them. Then I'm going to demonstrate one of them. I'm going to ask one of you to be my mentee. I'm going to do some mirroring, and then I'm going to ask you to actually practice some mirroring, because it's the one that I think is the most fun. All right? Okay, so we're going to go into these techniques. So the first technique, you can follow along on that, let's see, page 6, these techniques. Okay, first technique is inquiring. Basically, inquiring is just asking questions. But when you can ask questions with a lot of curiosity, then it's not like you're just fishing for something that you're trying to get out of them. And a lot of people think that that's the way you should do mentoring. So just asking questions that are really showing them how you care about what they're interested in and are going to be following what they're interested in. So focusing on the mentee's goals. So I'm always asking a lot about the goals. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What's important for you? Open-ended questions. Let me give you a few examples. So you're getting started. So how will you get started with this? What would you choose if you had to decide today? So it's forcing them into a little bit of, making a decision. What's most important to you about this decision? So you're asking them to center into what is the root that makes it important for them. Where else might you look for that, whatever it is that they're looking for, and they're stuck, right? They don't know how to, where else might you look? It's a pretty simple question. Goal setting. How important is that goal for you? Oh, they think the boss thinks it's important. Is it really important to you, right? So just asking those kinds of questions are evoking in them to think about it. You're trying to get them to kind of get inside and think about those kinds of things. So those are kind of like open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. Next one is offering questions on what is working. There are always people that tend to focus on the negative. Somewhere in the conversation, they've said something positive. Something's working. So I go there. Because when I can put them in the place where they are happier and feeling energized, they have more motivation to keep going. There are those that just keep going back to that negative stuff, and I just keep moving them back to the positive stuff, what is working and not what isn't working. And lastly, remaining unattached to your own agenda. So one of the things they teach in mentoring is usually we're trying to figure out something about them, right? And we think that's the problem and that's where they need to go, and we're so sure about it. And basically, to put the power back in their hands is to not stay attached to it. So if the question you're asking is not landing, you let it go. You ask a bunch of other questions, right? You just try not to stay attached to it. Because if they think you're after something that you know the answer to, and they're fishing around trying to figure out what you think the answer is, then they're not in their own place. Yeah? Okay. So, next one is active listening. Active listening goes along with it because active listening is a way to show that you are really engaged with them. It's that your genuine curiosity. And deep listening goes further. That's when you're actually trying to use your intuitive sense and you're using your body to actually sense what's going on. So cultivating a multidimensional ear, so I'm looking for all kinds of things when I'm listening. And I'm trying to listen on emotional level, physical level, mental level, what's going on there. Hearing patterns, this is a really cool one. They say that animals in the forest understand patterns of how animals walk around, move around, where they hunt stuff. We can begin to understand the patterns of our mentee. When we understand them, we know when they're, like, let's say they go into this place where they're always getting into a negative spot. If you get to know that pattern with them, you know, okay, so I gotta go that direction because they're gonna just be stuck down there and we're gonna be here for the whole hour, right? So you wanna try to understand, get an idea of what the patterns are, clues for the mood. They may be smile on their face, but you can just tell they're not happy. So finding a way to, hey, I noticed that something's going on for you. Is there something you might want to share with me? They may say no, that's okay, but at least you're bringing that up and you're helping them to get aware of that. And what is unsaid, right? And sometimes it takes me half a year to get somebody to say something that it's been in there forever, you know. Listening from the mentee's context. So I can hear a word and it has certain meaning to me. But if I don't understand what it means to them, I'm thinking it means this, and I'm not even with the person anymore, I'm with myself. So really trying to understand the context of those words in their context. And lastly, quieting whatever distractions you might have that keeps you from being able to listen.
When we were in that corner, that's what took me there, because all of us shared how distracting work setting is. We are very busy. There are so many people that draws on us. And I don't know if you have ways outside of just getting away from work completely, which we have to do with the mentees from time to time. What techniques do you use to kind of quiet? You are on mental distraction, but then everything that is coming from you that makes it difficult to deepen
Yes.
the listening, that you can really contain what you're hearing.
For me, it's a whole lifestyle. It's not the answer you want to hear. I turn my computer off before somebody comes in. I try to take a break, go to the bathroom, get some tea. Just so get up, walk around, come back, change my mind. I try to do it as much as I can away from the work setting. I mean, even trainings in a work setting are harder for you because you're all attached to your training. I know that. That's normal. If there's a way that you can do that, that would be it. Sometimes you can have like simple things like a touchstone that just kind of reminds you. I mean, there's certain things that calm us. And I'm a meditator. I meditate almost every day because I am so distracted and so easily disoriented. So if I don't do that, I can't stay focused. It's helpful? Tea. Do the tea ritual. Go get some tea. Okay, the best of mirroring. Okay, so basically mirroring is you act as a human mirror. You basically just give them what they just gave you. You give it right back to them, but you give it back as close as you can in the form that they brought it to you. So I actually take a lot of notes. You're going to see me while I'm doing some mirroring. I'm taking notes. I try to put it in their words, and then I try to communicate it back to them in the same tone, because communication is, what do they say, 7% words, 55% nonverbal, and 38% tone. So what I'm basically doing, this is an extraordinary thing. If you say the words back to them that they just said, it opens space up for them to consider what they just said. So it's really pretty simple. And when I really started practicing this, I started to notice, oh my gosh, all this stuff starts to open up, and all I did was just say back to them the same words. It can be a little bit annoying if your mentor's always doing that, but like, I just keep hearing back. But you'll have beginning mentors that actually do that a lot to practice it. What you can do is attach another question on it. So I'm going to give you an example. This is actually backtracking the next one. When I hear you saying blah, 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 it makes me wonder if you're needing da, 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 and you let them fill that in. You know, you can say, hey, are you needing a pat on the back? Are you needing somebody to come in and sit with you? You know, are you needing some rest? Whatever it might be, you can kind of use your own creativity in that, and then they'll say yes, no, whatever, but what it does is it activates them to keep moving with it. You know, even if you're completely wrong, doesn't matter. They will come back with some response. Another one. When I see you, I'm curious if you're feeling. So if you want to bring in the feeling area, you use that feeling question. I'm wondering if you're feeling. And you may be dead wrong, but that's okay. They'll say, no, this is what I'm feeling. Or you'll get, maybe they don't want to talk about their feelings. All right, so then you know that's an area you just stay away from because that's not where they want to go. So these are ways that you can actually use the same words they are and add a little something on it just to keep it moving, right? And it's an open-ended question. So that's actually backtracking in order to build the clarity, because you don't actually know what's going on a lot of the time. And you don't have very much time. So you can use these kinds of techniques to help to keep the information coming up. You want that information to be coming up because if nothing else, they're getting a chance to talk. And they're getting a chance for you to be listening and caring with all that good support that you're giving. And that is sometimes all that they're needing. And giving positive energy for momentum. So you have wonderful eyes, and you're always giving that energy to me. And I consider that to be sort of a propeller, so that I want to talk, I want to keep going. And you're giving energy so that they can stay in their own momentum. Taking them back to their sweet spot where they're happy and where they're energized is also a way. So if it gets really dead or it starts to sort of slow down, kind of turn it back to something, hey, I remember you said to me, God, and you seem really excited about that. And then they'll get all excited again because they go back to that place where they're feeling in their energy stream. The last one, the craft of advancing. So the saying about this is you can take a horse to water, but you can't get them to drink. This one is about the mentor learning all the tricks of the trade so you actually get them to actually realize, oh, I need to drink. This is kind of the mentor's magic. And it takes a long time to actually develop. I didn't want to put you into this because it's actually a very complex skill. Reframing to affirm the direction. So I do a lot of times, I'm saying it over again, and they get, but I can add on something like, oh, this seems like a strength of yours. Do you consider it to be a strength of yours? And how does that strength feel when you feel it in your body? You know, what do you feel? You want to stand up? You know, those kinds of things, put them back into remembering those things. Inviting the mentee's intuition or resources. So I'm always digging around for what resources do you have? What can you figure out in yourself that you can use to do this? Is it a friend? Is it, you know, some other thing that you know about? I use sometimes metaphors, and those metaphors, oh, you get really, it's almost like you're climbing a mountain here, right? Okay, so what does it feel like climbing that mountain? You seem to be a really good mountain climber. Right? So you're giving them, oh yeah, what is that metaphor how would I use that here? Climbing a mountain, what does it feel like a mountain? So you put them back into that place of strength. Offering questions that generate energy. So that's again, going back to the sweet spot. Stay away from, if you have someone who goes down that negative spiral, really try to keep putting them back into that place where they get energy. And the last thing, formulating questions to stimulate, shift, and open. Not the easiest thing to do. So what I would like to do is I would like to demonstrate